Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Steve Pitt. I'm the leader of the council and the chair of this cabinet meeting. Bit of housekeeping before we get started. If continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room or public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of the meeting. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be recorded and broadcast on the website. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they've finished. We've all read the reports. Officers will offer any highlights or developments that have occurred since publication. We'll begin with some introductions round the table, starting on my left with Natalie.
Natalie Brommer-Pearl, Chief Executive.
Richard Webb, Deputy Director of Finance.
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
Steve Watkins, I'm the Technical Director at Portsmouth Port.
Mike Sellers, Port Director, Portsmouth International Port.
Lee House, Environmental Lead, Portsmouth Port.
Matthew Williamson, Cabinet Member for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care.
Hugh Mason, Cabinet Member for Planning Policy and City Development.
Paddy May, Corporate Strategy Manager.
James Harris, Senior Local Democracy Officer.
Claire Looney, Commissioning and Partnership Manager, Culture, Leisure and Regulatory Services.
Catherine Ramsey, Business Manager, Culture, Leisure and Reg Services.
Lorna Reevely, Chief Officer of the Hive Portsmouth.
Kimberly Barrett, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Green in the City.
Dave Ashmore, and I help look after environmental services.
Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Central Services.
I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, and I look after the city's community safety, leisure and sports, which includes parks and open spaces. I'm also a councillor for Nelson Ward, which covers Buckland, Stamshaw, North End and Tipner.
Peter Candlish, Transport.
Councillor Dorrington, Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education.
Councillor Darren Sanders, the Cabinet Member for Housing and Tackling Homelessness.
Helen Dickerson, Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Thank you all, and we're also joined today by Toby from the News. Welcome, Toby. We don't have any apologies from members, but we have apologies from Peter Balfour, City Solicitor, which is why Helen's covering, and from Chris Ward as Director of Finance, which is why Richard's covering today. So thank you both for being here. Members, any declarations of interest? Nope. Okie doke. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are we happy to receive those as a correct record of that meeting? Agreed. Thank you. The next item then of formal business is item 4, which is the Portsmouth International Port Environmental, Social and Governance Strategy, which henceforth in today's meeting will be referred to as the ESG strategy, because otherwise we'll be here till midnight. We're going to have Lee Howes, who's the Port Environmental Lead Officer, presenting with support from Steve and Mike. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the invite here. And by way of introduction with the ESG strategy itself, this may be a new term for some members. And what I have sought to do over my last around about 18 months in post hasn't been to reinvent the wheel, because I've been cognizant that there is a lot of exceptionally good activities that have been taking place at the port historically. And what I wanted to do was to craft a strategy that would actually encapsulate everything that we are already doing, not just in terms of environmental, but also in terms of societal and governance, and in particular capturing a lot of the good work the port does with innovation, local educational institutions, and generally working with others to collaboratively deal with the issues that we face. So in creating this strategy, I looked at what we ourselves are doing, what's taking place both with peer organisations, but also government both nationally and internationally, and to make sure that what we are doing is totally aligned with expectations of us, and also including the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. What we've created is a document that is very much intending to be a live document. I don't want it to be something that is just created, published, and then we say this is going to be how it will be forevermore. One thing we've realised certainly in recent years is that the climate we operate in can change, and this strategy is designed to have a living approach, so it can flex, it can change as circumstances so require. A key aspect of it will be the creation of benchmarks and baseline data, because I'm very keen that what we do at the port is measurable. Rather than just saying we're going to do things, having data to underpin our decision making, I believe, gives it extra credibility. And also with that data, we will be committing to reporting publicly on an annual basis to the public, but also in light of recent comments, we'll be having internal governance as well to oversee the implementation of the key action areas within the document. In terms of how we will go to implementing it internally, underpinning all this, there will be a series of action plans for all of the key topics as set out in the report to members. And again, those will focus on very much the short-term, mid-term and our longer-term ambitions, which will be in terms of carbon to reach net zero in 2035 and an ambition to have zero emissions status in 2050. That is it in a nutshell. I'm conscious of a busy agenda. I don't want to go through this in too much detail because I'm conscious you've read it, but I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much, Lee. Mike and Steve, anything you wanted to add?
No, just as Lee said, we have been, as you know, we've been doing a lot of the port, but we really haven't formed a strategy with those targets, and that's what this is around our environment, social governance.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Leader. Really welcome the report coming forward today, and it's great to have Lee on board. I know you've been doing exceptional work over the last 18 months, and we're really pleased that you've been feeding into this sort of stuff and also working with other members, other officers at the council as well, and taking on feedback. So I appreciate that. As Mike said, so much is going on at the port in regards to environmental projects, sustainability. We've got some excellent projects that are in place now and are making a real difference, whether it's the solar tech that we've got down there, whether it's everything that you've got with the, it's a sea water coming through and the new terminal. The shore power is coming, well, hopefully coming forward anyway. So I think having this report coming forward to sort of set targets, but also, as you said, being a live document and a live project that we can make changes if needs be as things happen. But I'm pleased that we've got sort of the target in place there, and I think it's a good way to sort of look forward to understand what we've done, what we want to do and what we can do as well, which is always great, and is something that a lot of people say to me about what we do as a council as well as other organisations as well. So I think the fact that we've got this in place now and we can show that to people, that I think is a great step forward. So I don't have too much to say because I could shout and scream about the port in such a positive way about so many things that you guys do down there, and I hopefully I speak for everybody, I'm sure I do. We're so proud of the port and what they achieve and what they do for the city as well, and the income it brings in as well to the city to enable us to do some of the things that we can do, whereas otherwise we'd probably face a number of cuts in a number of places. It's fantastic, and I cannot wait for the open day as well. I keep saying to people about it, so on top of that, a bit of a publicity plug, so do look out for the date for the open day. I took my children to the last one and they absolutely loved every moment of it. In fact, one of my children is quite interested in engineering now, so we will be sending them down your way to have a look. So thank you. I think it's a really good report, and long may it continue. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you. Councillor Mason.
I'd just like a little more information, looking at the very advanced things that you're looking at, seeing on page 45 of our papers and following. How To what extent are you involving the users of the port, both those who are the commercial users and those who are passing through the port in these, developing these strategies and carrying them forward?
So we work very closely with all the port users. These are specifically our targets, but we, as Lee mentioned, we are, you know, a living laboratory, I guess, for innovation, working with the SMEs, the stuff that we do with the schools and education. We work very closely with people like Brittany Ferries, DFDS, some of the cruise liners, White Link, the Royal Navy. When we do have these Maritime Mondays, when we do bring some of the schools into the port and we talk about the careers, so we work very closely with them. Each one of our port users have got their own targets as well. As you know, Brittany Ferries have brought in hybrid ferries where they are looking to move towards zero emissions if they can, in terms of bringing those ships in and out of the harbour. So, you know, we have got a number of port users who are very focused on their own targets around net zero, and we work in collaboration. We actually had a port users meeting this morning, and we do that very regularly.
Thank you.
I think this is a very important point because the success of this depends upon it being a total package, including everybody who is concerned with the port. Otherwise, it could fall flat on its face. And I am very pleased with the way in which the port is involving as many of its users as possible in this, and also the local community in these developments.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Hugh. Members, anyone else? Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, you will thank the officers, of course, for their skill and dedication on behalf of the people of Portsmouth, and indeed, for as long as I've been on the council now, coming up for 28, maybe even 30 years by the time I finished, we have continued to, we have seen the sense of a publicly owned port and the benefits that that brings to the council taxpayers of Portsmouth and more widely because of the economic activity that is driven by the port. And I think, fellas, you mentioned to me just now, Ms. Sellers, that, you know, there's about a £10 million spend when people turn right coming out of the ferry port. Shows you how far back I go, doesn't it? When people come out of the international port and they come down into and around the city and they spend their money in all these amazing cultural and creative activities we've got, from the rock walls to the tower, which we're investing in as well, thanks partly indeed to the port, and to all the stuff along the seafront, Charles Dickens, Isambard Brunel, all this literary heritage we've got, all this naval heritage that we have got. There's so much for all these people that you talk about coming into our city to go see and do. What concerns me is local government reorganisation, and some people might be sick to the death of hearing about it, but if and when it gets done, people are going to be absolutely hacked off with it. And the one thing that I keep saying to people on the doorstep, you must be really certain that if we are not running the council anymore, as Portsmouth City Council, privatisation of the port could be on the cards. And the port brings in 10.3 million into the council's coffers every year to do the things that Councillor Barrett talked about just now and others. And that would be lost. Anybody doing that would be bloody stupid, quite frankly, to chuck away, you know, £100 million over 10 years to go into local services across a bigger council area. But I don't know how much the port is valued at. I've never ever heard how much it's valued at. Maybe you might say, but it's an enormous amount of money. And if they wanted to pay down a whole bunch of debt in one go and clear off all the problems, maybe not debt, but deficit, maybe that's what might happen. You know, so they start from zero. I hope not. But if a whole bunch of unthinking people get in charge of this new council, who have the the ideology of privatisation and smaller public ownership, that could happen, and it would be a very backward step. But I'd just like to finish with saying thank you all very much indeed for enabling us to be able to spend money on things that we might not otherwise be able to spend money on.
Thank you, Lee. And yes, obviously echo the thanks to officers for the strategy. Funnily enough, I've just been away for the weekend visiting one of our sister cities, and the conversation I had with the mayor there was about sustainable tourism and making sure that you are not harming the city by the visitor numbers that you're bringing in. It's always about a balance to make sure that you do that, and one of the ways we can do that here is with things like the ESG strategy and making sure that we are minimising our environmental impact and wherever possible creating a positive for the city, and using that not just to benefit ourselves, but in my view using it as an exemplar for other major transport hubs and destinations around the country to be doing likewise, because it's not a strategy that we're seeing specifically come down from government. They make the right noises, but this is the sort of thing that I think they should be picking up as a template and rolling it out elsewhere. Because our visitor numbers are absolutely crucial to us as a city. It's 10.8 million, I think is the figure now, isn't it, that we're benefiting from, which is a vast amount of cash, and at a time when hospitality nationally in particular, partly due to some of the ridiculously stupid decisions of this current government, is on its knees. So any money coming in and supporting hospitality in our city and supporting the cultural industries in our city and our tourism, vitally important, but we do need to do it sustainably. And working with our partners at Brittany and our cruise partners, we've now got a roadmap to make sure that we're doing that. So Lee, thank you for all your work on that. Mike and Steve, thank you for being here this afternoon. Members, are we happy? We are happy. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we're now moving on to item 5, which is the Member Champions Annual Report. James Harris to introduce.
Thank you, Leader. The report before Cabinet contains annual updates from the Council's Member Champions and is presented to Cabinet in accordance with the Member Champions Protocol. The reports themselves have been submitted by the Member Champions and are before Cabinet for noting.
Short and sweet. I'm not going to comment because I broke one of them. Councillor Atwell.
Thank you, Leader. Some thank yous. Further to the rationalisation of in numbers of member champions a couple of years ago, it is right that we still have a member champion for women, children and domestic violence, and thank you to Charlotte Gerarda, Councillor Gerarda, for her commitment to the role and the work she does within it. And thank you to you. As leader, you get to be Armed Forces Champion. Clearly, we take our relationship with military in the city very seriously, and the report demonstrates how many activities you've attended. Alongside, you have 2 deputy champions who also do their part as well. So thank you very much, and we continue to work with our partners across the city, supporting veterans. Tomorrow I'll be representing you at Veterans Outreach Support, who we work very closely with. So thank you to you and to Councillor Gerarda for your work championing your areas of responsibility.
Thank you very much, Chris. And it's timely, actually, I suppose, in a way that we remind people just how much we do as a local authority, particularly for our armed forces community. We are held up as a national exemplar for the work that we do here and our work supporting the Armed Forces Covenant. I do need to correct you on something, though, because you said that as leader, I'm the Armed Forces Champion, which is a fact that I am the leader and I am the Armed Forces Champion, but I'm only playing with you. The point is, it doesn't need to be the leader. It could just reside with the cabinet. It has to be a member of the cabinet, but the importance that we've always bestowed in that role is to invest it with the leader. So Gerald was the leader, was the Armed Forces Champion previously. I believe Donna was when she was leader of the council, and I am. And that just shows that it is front and centre in our thinking at all times around the support that we make available, quite rightly, going above and beyond that of many local authorities around the country to make sure that our veterans are held close and that we do all we can to support them. We are waiting to hear the outcome, of course, of our application to be part of the Op Valor as an armed forces hub for the country. Both our MPs supported that, and we have been very lucky to have an organisation that Chris mentioned, who he's visiting on my behalf tomorrow, Veterans Outreach Support, and Ian Millen, who leads it, doing fantastic work there that all the local authorities for the Solent region have coalesced around to make sure that we've got an incredibly strong bid. But this extends beyond other things. I suspect Darren may comment shortly about the support we give to the armed forces community through housing prioritisation. And that wraparound support that is available there all year round. So let no one say that we as a council do not regard our armed forces community as an extremely important part of our city and one that we cherish. To do so would be complete misrepresentation and very unfair. And as you quite rightly pointed out, Chris, this doesn't need to be party political. It is not party political. Councillor Tom Coles and Councillor Frank Jonas do an exceptional job supporting me as the deputy champion, something that we've moved towards over the last couple of years to make sure that it is cross-party. And of course, in Councillor Coles' case, he is himself a veteran. So I really want to put on record my thanks to them for their support, and bon ami at the many events that we've attended, either individually and together during the course of the year. I know that they both highly value the role that they have as well. So a pleasure to report back, and also to echo your thanks to Councillor Gerarda for the invaluable work that she's doing. There are certain people in this country at the moment who do not feel that this sort of special interest should be taken in particular issues, and I think they're fundamentally wrong, and that actually there's still a long way to go and a lot of work to do, particularly around violence against women and girls, where it ceases to become an issue, but we are nowhere near that point yet, and it's important that we remember that, and we will, of course, later in the year mark White Ribbon Day, again in Guildhall Square, as we have done previously, and we will be flying the flag again, whether people like it or not. Members, anything else? Councillor Sanders.
Well, you mentioned me, so I might as well. I want to refer back to the casework bit in your Armed Forces Champion report, because I do think it's very important. When many people leave the Armed Forces, it's very difficult to know where to go. Civvy Street is very hard, especially when you spent decades in the Armed Forces. I'm very lucky in that the husband of one of my war colleagues in Baffins is a serving officer, a chief petty officer. They're lucky. They're in a good house. They're in a good place. It's a loving family. And when he leaves, I know that he will do well. Many others don't. And that's why the work, as you've outlined and as Chris has outlined, of Veterans Outreach Support in particular, has been hugely helpful in making sure they get to the right place at the right time and get a decent home. And the fact that our coordinated veterans support approach has been mentioned by the Local Government Association, which is the trades union for local government, as being an exemplar across the country. It's a very good example of that. We don't treat people as veterans, we treat them as humans who've served our country well. And I'm delighted we've been able to do that. I'm delighted that the latest figures show that we're housing more veterans than we ever did because of changes to our allocation policy. That's a good thing. And I think that that's one of those things that we do incredibly well. We don't shout about it too much, but it's one of those things that we already do. We don't need necessarily extra help, but what we do need is the ability to do the things we do well even better. And I look forward to the outcome of Chris's meeting with Veterans Outreach Support tomorrow. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Members, they're only for noting. Everybody happy? Yeah, okay, fine. Moving on to item 6 on the agenda, an update on progress against the corporate plan. Just before I hand over to Paddy, though, for anyone watching who's not sure what on earth the corporate plan is, it's all the priorities that we put together that as an administration that we want the council to be working towards, and therefore we have an opportunity to be updated on progress against all those priorities at different times. So it might sound corporate, because it literally is, but it's actually about real things that make changes that matter to people's lives, and it's important that we are taking stock of how we're progressing against those on a regular basis. Paddy, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. So this report about progress for the medium-term corporate plan that was agreed in 2024. The plan has both the transformational activity that we are undertaking as well as the business as usual work that the Council does on a daily basis. Paragraph 2.5 lists the extensive thematic themes and priorities for the plan, which supports the Council's overall aims. If you then look at section 3.2, this lists some of the some of the progress against the priorities, and it's quite an impressive list. More detail is given in Appendix 1. Section 4 of the report rather provides some of the future priorities, and this is again sort of an ambitious programme for the next year. But this does need to be considered alongside the competing pressures for the organisation around both local government reorganisation and devolution, and both of these will impact on the organisation's capacity to deliver the priorities that we've set. Thank you.
Yes, another timely reminder of the fact that this is not something that we will, for much longer, have control over our own destiny with. There will be others. Potentially 60% of the people sat making decisions at the council in future will be from outside Portsmouth, and therefore they will have different priorities and things that they want to concentrate on, and Portsmouth's voice will be diluted. And that's why just one of the reasons why we've been against it from the beginning. But as you say, Paddy, those things listed in 3.2, for anyone watching online who doesn't have access to the report, successful work to reduce fly tipping, including work in partnership with the university, working with COLAS to improve the cleansing of the highways, working with partners to focus on key areas such as the Fratton project, Operation Lemon, I know it's Councillor Ashmore's favourite. Strong preventative work to support health and wellbeing for vulnerable people, including the Recovery City model and Project W to support women's health. Working to improve public transport through the Landmark Bus Project, Bus Strategic Improvement Plan, including a focus on accessibility. Supporting small businesses with our wider high streets initiative with such as things as the pop-up shops in Cascades and Gunwharf and a model of wider business support, increasing the range of opportunities in the city through our improved leisure facilities and wider range of experienced operators, including Andrew Simpson Foundation, maintaining well-integrated services for health and care here in Portsmouth, development of a homelessness prevention hub, continued support for residents struggling with the cost of living through the Household Support Fund and delivery of the Holiday Activity and Food Programme, and successfully bidding to the Nature Towns and Cities Programme to develop our approach to the natural environment in the city, continuing to develop our countryside service. And those are just a few of the highlights. Most members of the Cabinet will recognise that it is their particular area where that progress has been made, but of course we do approach this collegiately, and we set our corporate plan priorities as a Cabinet. So a lot of work going on, a lot of thanks to the officers for their work to support the corporate plan and make sure that we are delivering, but also holding ourselves to account for making sure that we are making good progress on all fronts. But just an update received, it's partly with a tinge of sadness, that corporate plan that's set for 2028 onwards will be very, very different and a different flavour. And I genuinely think that's sad. Okay, members, any comments or questions? Councillor Ashmore?
As you raised me earlier, Leader, I thought, just a big thanks really to the officers, the contractors, everyone that's worked on the fly tipping, which is obviously under my portfolio on that one, to the point where the I can hear noises. Yeah, but the point where the figures for fly tipping tonnage in Portsmouth are the lowest that I've known them, and that's against the backdrop nationally of fly tipping increasing and becoming a problem. So again, showing that Portsmouth Council does work very well. Our officers they're on it, and you know we recognise the issues, and we've come up with things to improve them, like working. You listed them, but you know, like working with COLAS to come up with more improving and efficient ways of dealing with fly tipping issues. Intelligent use of CCTV as both prevention and to catch the perpetrators of that. Increased fixed penalty notices, FPNs, have gone out. So, you know, when I'm speaking to people on the doors and they say about the fly tipping, clearing it up is one thing, but they also want to see that people are you know, that there's enforcement action taken and that people are going to get some comeuppance for it, and that's happening. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you and highlight that myself.
Of course, we do see a narrative that people think that Portsmouth should be cleaner, and we all agree it should be, but it is not clean due to the actions of this council or the actions of COLAS, our contractor, or the community wardens who go around logging all this stuff and making sure it's removed. It's not clean because people dump rubbish in their own city, the place where they live, the place where their families live and where they bring up children. That is what is at fault. Not the council or councillors or council officers. It is down to those people needing to take a sense of responsibility. And I think it's a shame and misfocused when people talk about the council letting people down, when actually it's communities letting themselves down by littering in the first place. And it's something we've seen particularly in the seafront areas, where the more bins we put out, the more and more bags of rubbish appear. And yet somebody's carried a whole can and tray of cans of beer down there, and a case of beer, 24 cans or whatever they've taken, is quite heavy, yet they can't be bothered to take a carrier bag home with the empty cans in. And it's those behaviours that we need to keep working to try and change, because that shouldn't be acceptable to anybody. It's not about, oh, well, just add more bins, send out more people to report the fly tipping. That's not dealing with a problem. You've heard me many times use the analogy about if the sink's overflowing, don't buy more buckets, turn the tap off. Well, residents, this one's down to you. If you see poor behaviours, call people out. I saw an example mentioned online only a couple of days ago where somebody was visiting a city in another country, and they threw a piece of rubbish on the street, and the person came out of the shop because they'd seen them do it, picked it up and gave it to them and said, you can do that in your own country, but you're not doing it in mine. And maybe we need a little bit of that here. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, obviously the latter part of your comments there is addressed in the seafront report a bit later on too. I think at 3.2 or something. So it's part of the enormous success of the seafront that we have these issues that arise. But as Councillor Candish would say, it's how you deal with it. The business as usual, and do you get it cleared up quick? And yes, we do get it cleared up quick. Not quick enough for some people, but it gets cleared up ever so quickly. You know, what I wanted to touch upon was fly tipping mentioned by Councillor. Since we're on that, by Councillor Ashmore, because I oversee the wardens, and he's completely correct that more people are being prosecuted by way of fixed penalties generally when they fly tip, and to a larger extent, this is because we have been able to buy, thanks to all the things we talked about earlier on, more redeployable cameras to catch people doing it. And when they are caught, they get some pretty hefty fines. So, and what I wanted to say was, what we're doing now is we're actually upskilling community wardens, training them, more of them, to do more of the fly tipping so that their confidence increases. And something that I don't always get out, and I didn't get out at the council meeting when I wanted to, was that not so long ago we had community wardens on yearly contracts. And then when I got into the cabinet, I said, this isn't a smart idea. We need to put them on fixed contracts so that when we skill up an officer, the skills are retained within the council. And so we see people upgrading their skills all the time, becoming more confident to tackle the sorts of things we want them to tackle. So that's what I wanted to point out. So it's cross services, everything we do. And I will say, you know, I've been trudging the streets more and more and more and more. And the truth is, despite what all of us sometimes think, because we get told, you know, our streets, I've just seen two people in, where was it? London Road, or absolutely getting in there, into the little grooves, the street cleaners getting into the little grooves, getting every bit of rubbish out of the pavement and in the, so we have some really good road sweepers. I know they're proud of their rounds. They're really proud of the state of the streets in Portsmouth. And the truth is, you know, I've been down Wilson Road and Grunniston Road and Newcomen Road today. There was actually nothing on the streets that you could call rubbish. Nothing. Diddly squat. I know some councils like to pretend that there is a lot of stuff. But you do get these hot spots, as we say, where the fly tipping goes on, and we're not so dumb as to say that they aren't there. They are, and when people get caught, we try and catch them and prosecute them. So thank you to the road sweepers as well.
Thank you, Lee. Members, anything else? No? Okay, in that case, all happy with the report? No? Okay, agreed then, thank you. Thank you, Paddy. Item 7 on the agenda today is the approvals relating to the Hampshire and Solent Combined County Authority. So, members, you remember that last week at full council, we took the report there for noting and to give members an opportunity to ask questions of senior officers of the council and also of me, as it turned out, regarding the way things are moving forward. I did ask James Harris actually to make sure that the minutes were updated because they for the meeting last week, because they didn't reference the suspension of standing orders to offer elected members an opportunity to ask questions of officers, and I think that was important that that was recorded because it shows that that opportunity was there. There had of course been all member briefings and group leader briefings as well, and at no point through any of that process has there been anyone who has said that they did not want us to continue with this piece of work. We are, as I understand it, the current situation is that the Isle of Wight had to take it through full council because they have the committee system. They have done so and it was supported. Southampton have taken it through their process, and Hampshire County Council have also taken it through full council, and I understand it's now being signed off by their cabinet as well. So we are the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle today, folks. We need to agree this, and then we will tell the government that we've all been through those processes and that they need to get on and put the statutory instrument in and stop mucking about. So who's we got? Which one of you leading off? I've got Natalie and Paddy down for this item.
Thank you, Leader. Paddy? So as you said, it was discussed at full council last week. The two key recommendations are to allow the Chief Executive to approve further minor changes to the statutory instrument and to also agree that Natalie can agree the statutory instrument on behalf of PCC. We're likely to be given the statutory instrument by government for approval within the next couple of weeks, we hope. And it's likely that we'll get very limited time to agree it, possibly as little as 24 hours. As you said, all 4 constituent councils need to approve the SI, and we are the last of the 4 to do that. Once this happens, government will lay the statutory instrument before Parliament, and assuming Parliament approves it, then the new combined authority will be set up at that stage, and that's likely to be somewhere between 6, 8, 10 weeks, plus the parliamentary recess times as well. Paragraph 3.8 report lists what we've been able to negotiate in terms of our discussions with central government beyond what was originally offered when they decided that the mayor elections were being postponed for 2 years. And as I think as the report makes clear, as well as all the positives of taking this forward, this opportunity, there's also the reverse to consider. Failure to take the opportunity now would likely be to the detriment of Portsmouth, with less funding available to support the local area, and any future devolution offers like to be far less generous. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy, and I agree that's a timely reminder. I know that you've been round the devolution block more times than you would like to have done at this council, and it is actually quite a momentous thing that we will be agreeing today, because by doing so, it will be the first time that all of the upper tier local authorities have approved a plan, and nobody's going to pull out of that because they'll have gone through those processes, whereas on certain points in the past, some decisions were made fairly unilaterally by leaders at the 11th hour and 50, well, actually gone the 11th hour and 59th minute, the day after they'd agreed them on one occasion, which members may recall. And Paddy's absolutely right. The government is moving towards combined authorities in whatever guise across the whole country. The issue is, do we want to be at the front end of that and get money with it, or do we want to wait and just have it done to us, and we'll have something that says that we've got a combined authority but actually brings no real powers and no significant funding? It's much better, in my view, that we are at the forefront of that and leveraging something really meaningful from the government, rather than just waiting to be part of a tick box exercise to say, well, we've got combined authorities across the whole of England, even though some of them actually have no powers and no money. So we are where we are. I'd like to place on record my personal thanks to the leaders of Hampshire County Council, Southampton City Council and Isle of Wight Council, who've worked incredibly closely with me, probably more closely than they'd like to have done, to be honest. We've seen rather a lot of each other over the last year or so, but we've worked very collegiately, and we've always been able to address any obstacles that have come along with good humour and mutual respect, and for that I would like to thank them all. They've been exceptional, and without the particular makeup that we have at the moment, because remember this is an independent council-led council, and a Labour-led council, a Conservative-led council, and Lib Dem-led council, all coming together to put all those differences to one side and work out what's the best for the region. And I think that is hopefully what this deal will be remembered for. But also want to place on record thanks to Paddy and Natalie in particular for their long sufferance during the last 12 months, where the goalposts have been moved on us, and we've had to make adjustments in order to get to where we are today. Natalie, did you want to add anything? No? No, you've said enough on this issue. Absolutely. Members' comments. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, just be absolutely clear that devolution, that was in Labour's manifesto, and they got elected on it. They're entitled to implement their manifesto. I've always believed that from governments. But it's altogether different from local government reform. That is where we say hands off Portsmouth. I think sometimes it's difficult to understand get the difference, particularly when you've got politicians deliberately trying to conflate the two issues. The News did an article recently on this, and they got it most 9/10 right, but it was still a bit ambiguous. It wasn't altogether clear the difference between the two. Some people say that they go hand in glove. They jolly well do not. They jolly well do not. It's altogether different. One, devolution has a fair amount of democracy about it. Local government reform, or reorganisation, I beg your pardon, has no democracy about it at all. We are either on it, we are either led to the gallows, or we walk to the gallows. That's how it seemed to me to be. So we have no choice. Well, we are fighting back. The other thing I wanted to say about devolution, which is the Hampshire and Isle of Wight mayor, is always my concern about it has been that Hampshire has two different economies. There's one in the north that faces towards London, and there's one towards the south, south of Basingstoke or south of Winchester, that faces towards Europe, truthfully. And it's how the new mayor rides those two different horses. And I don't want to see Portsmouth lose out as they get sucked into the economies, to the London economy and Thames Valley and all that way. So that's always been a concern of mine. So I hope that whoever does become elected genuinely decides to plan and help regenerate and continue the good work of what we have achieved here, which has been ginormous.
You make some really good points there, Lee, particularly around the phrasing we use is functional economic area. And I can give you an assurance that we are better making those decisions in Hampshire than we are relying on government. And I base that on a letter that I received last week from a government minister who described Hampshire and the Solent as a functioning economic area, because it ain't. It is not one functioning economic area just because somebody drew a line on a map, because somebody went out and pillaged a few extra villages and decided that they were running Hampshire 800 odd years ago, and over how long it was. There's a load of nonsense. Functioning economic areas, you are right, there is one for the Solent. There is very much a northern Hampshire functioning economic area, and arguably there is a mid-Hampshire one facing down towards New Forest as well, that's based around a more rural economy. So it's important that we have that representation to reflect that on the administration of the combined authority going forward, and we will. But it's also important that those constituent authorities, however they are reorganised, who are on the combined authority from the Solent area, continue to make the very strong case that the Solent has a different functioning economy to other parts of Hampshire, which is a vast place, 2.4 million people. You know, it's bigger than an awful lot of European countries, to be perfectly honest. So it needs to not be glibly just flicked off with a pen by a minister who says, oh, that's a functioning economic area, when it clearly isn't. So I'm reassured, because if we left it up to the government, they'd probably be getting it wrong, because they'd be thinking we are one FEA, whereas actually we are at least two, arguably three, and therefore we're best to look after that for ourselves. But you're absolutely right to say that this is very different to local government reorganisation. So I've been at lots of public meetings where I've talked to people and I've said broadly, Devo good, LGR bad, and they should not have been mixed together. And in fact, the fact that they are happening at the same time is incredibly unhelpful and rather bonkers. We would have been much better to get the devolution piece done and functioning well, and then go in some consultation if that's what the government wanted about changing arrangements of local government, but not being dictated to in a couple of paragraphs of a white paper bunged out just before Christmas in December 2024. On the 16th of December, a date indelibly printed on my mind now because of the consequences of it for this local authority. But we are where we are. We've negotiated the combined authority deal well, I believe. We were offered, without the mayor, 33% of the funding. We've negotiated it up to 40. We were offered £4 million in capacity funding. We've increased that to 9 million through negotiation. We will also have a strategic partnership with Homes England. The government's currently consulting nationally on a visitor levy. Should that be something that we decide to move forward for our region in consultation with the sector, then that would be an opportunity that we can explore. We will still have to do a growth plan for Hampshire, and we will have to do all the prep work for this spatial strategy and ahead of the mayor arriving. But these are all things that we can get on with, and we'll be doing it by consensus. And the government has accepted that that is an acceptable route to governing a combined authority before the mayor arrives, and is in fact the same way that local enterprise partnerships have run perfectly effectively for the last 15 years. So lots to look forward to, lots of work to do as we bring the combined authority together and put its governance in place. It has a chief executive in Ruth, who all four leaders unanimously agreed would be the right person to take this forward, with extensive experience in this area, and I'm very sure that she will be fighting to make sure that this new combined authority runs as well as it possibly can. Anyone else got any more comments?
Any idea where it might meet?
Not yet. We have we were actually doing a piece of work on where it might meet, and then they told us they were postponing the mayor for 2 years, so we stopped working on that and started running around trying to make sure we still had a deal to get over the line. But that will be we'll probably have to do something that's an interim arrangement, so that when the mayor arrives, they can decide where their office should actually be, rather than rushing out to spend any money on such things at the moment. Hugh.
Coming back to the report which is before us, I would like to thank Paddy May and Natalie for producing this report, because what it does show is the extent to the changes which we will have to make within the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Combined Authority. The new functions which it will have, the changed functions which it will have, and I would certainly like to thank them for the clarity in appendices 2 and 3 of the report.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Darren?
I think the fact that we want to set this up now actually gives some comfort to some of the issues Lee raised earlier. The 4 councils that will take part in the first 2 years of this arrangement, 3 of which happen to be in the Solent, I think will actually reduce the chances of that disparity, which is a problem. This is going to be Britain's 6th biggest devolved body. More than many other parts of the country that are more famous than this area in terms of what it's been able to do. So it's a very large area, and it has to be treated as such. And I think the fact that we're going to start with constituent councils, actually try working together as they've been working together for the past 18 months or so, is a good thing, because that's a good start. And I think it will enable the mayor, whoever she or he may be, to come in and not realise that one size fits all. Devolution is incredibly important. Getting power out of London means economies are better, means communities are better, means communities are more in control. And the more I certainly talk to people, I get the sense that communities and people want to feel in control of their lives, and they want more control over the things that matter. And this is one way of doing that. And the fact is, we have secured an incredibly good deal because we've treated it as grown-ups. We haven't walked away and said, oh no, you were supposed to delay an election, so we're walking off. Instead, we've said, right, what do you want? You want more homes people can afford. Well, we've got homes that we can afford, some of which we might be talking about a bit later. And as a result of the work that we've done with our partners, this new authority will have more money to spend on what people want. It will have more powers to help people. It will be able to do things to create the sort of sustainable tourism we all need through the potential to have a visitor levy. It will be able to deal with things like lane rentals. So when the roadworks that keep piling up in our city keep piling up, the people doing the roadworks, the vast majority of whom is not the council, will have to pay for it. So this is an incredibly good deal. And I think that this is the best we could get. It is better than most people, and it is worth going for it. I don't particularly like mayors, but accept, as others have said, that Labour got elected on this platform and this type of devolution, and I think this is the best of what could have been a very bad job. And I think that we should do it. And I think if we do, we will start to see a change in people's lives very soon. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Darren. It's interesting, actually, because somebody asked me recently if I was concerned about the mayor not arriving till 2028. I said, well, since when the 4 upper-tier local authorities put in their expression of interest in having a combined authority, long before the white paper of doom emerged at the end of 2024, which put the cat amongst the pigeons in all sorts of different ways, in September of that year, we'd put in quite an ambitious ask for a combined authority for Hampshire and the Solent. And we didn't mention that we wanted a mayor. We said we accepted that they might make us have one, but that we were quite happy to proceed without one if that was okay with them. Of course, it wasn't okay with them. So when we've now looped back to the fact that we're not getting one for a couple of years, I'm absolutely fine with that. I think we can set a direction of travel, an initial one at least, and start to deal with some pressing priorities, and hopefully get the combined authority into good shape for a mayor to arrive and not get immediately sucked into navel gazing and having to work out how the whole thing's going to work, because it'll already be operating, and that gives them something that they can influence and change over time, but not that they have to focus on what colour the curtains are going to be on day one. So, yeah, anybody else? No. Members, are here we go then. Are you happy to approve the recommendations relating to the Hampshire and Solent Combined Authority? Yes. Thank you very much indeed. Natalie, you can jump on a messenger group and let the others know that we haven't done anything bizarre at the last minute. Well, believe me, everyone's been so worried about everyone else's decisions and cheering people on, because there's an enormous amount of work's gone into getting us this far. Yeah, now we can hopefully get on with it. We just need the government to not change anything else in the next few weeks and submit the statutory instrument to Parliament. Okay, moving on to item 8, Southsea Seafront Summer 2025, a report prepared by Claire Looney. You might ask, why is this here? It's because it crosses more than one portfolio. So some bits of it relate to Councillor Hunt's portfolio, some bits to mine, and indeed some bits are about traffic management, etc. So cross over to Peter as well. So when we do that, we always bring a report to Cabinet. Claire, over to you.
Thank you. And as you've just referenced, this report does touch across a number of different areas of portfolios, and it reports and reflects back on what was, if you recall, the long, hot summer last year. It highlights the very positive cross-service working that's been taking place, often under the surface. It's not very obvious to the public, as it doesn't necessarily have to be. And also both in terms of the wider partnership working that we do with external organisations in supporting and facilitating the best possible experience for all attenders, residents and visitors, to come and use this very busy space. It reflects on both our responsibilities and areas of concern for both the use of the land, and we're looking at implementing the water safety strategy for the use of the water. It touches on elements from environmental friendly planting through to multi-agency working, which flexes according to both weather and tidal conditions. We are aware that we need different resources at different times. Promotion of the key attractions across the seafront has already been referenced through this meeting on a number of occasions, and they're really critical in terms of that attractiveness of the seafront. We're also aware that this coming year, 2026, there is more activity happening across the seafront in responding to the Portsmouth 100 celebrations, and therefore we will continue to flex and deploy resources in the most effective way we possibly can, which goes across all services, from waste management through to staff on the ground, through to touching on the community wardens, in order to provide the best experience of people visiting the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and on my behalf at least, thank you to you and the Seafront team and everyone across the council who contributes to making the Seafront a fantastic and vibrant place, not least the events team who will be ramping things up now, ready for the new season and facilitating the various external events that have to be accommodated in order to provide the vibrant programme that we have, particularly during our centenary year. Councillor Hunt, over to you.
Well, thank you, Leader. You know, I'm enormously proud of the seafront, from Old Portsmouth right the way up to East, and indeed all around the island. I must say, when we first introduced going back for some context, so when we first introduced the Seafront Master Plan way back in 2013, Claire, that was quite a big change. So what we wanted to do is see more, we wanted to create, we wanted to encourage the seafront and Portsmouth in particular to be a weekend destination break for people coming from Europe, so as we heard from the officers earlier on, coming through the port and staying here the weekend, boosting hotel, creative industries, tourism industries that you talk about. And of course, the innovation that's come along the seafront has been quite enormous. You indeed, I think, had some influence over bringing the landing craft there. We invested money into the D-Day story, and that was a massive success, an international destination. We have international and regional events here, not least the festivals that we do, and Victorious. So we've worked very hard on all of that, and we wanted the seafront to become a destination on the south coast for music venues, and I think that we've largely succeeded in doing that. It started off with the small bandstand events, and that has blossomed now into these regular events every weekend through the summer. And so much more around sport and everything touched upon in this report. One thing I did want to focus on, which was very sad last year, was we have now a flock of swans. They should really be on a river somewhere or elsewhere, but they've come over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and our countryside rangers work with wardens, cross services, as we heard from Claire just now, to look after this flock of swans. But there was several incidents where one swan was very wickedly stamped on and killed, and others have been picked up by the neck and swung about. And this makes us sad, because we don't want it to happen. And what's sad about it is that the youngsters doing it knew no better, than to cause pain to a very magnificent animal. Brings us all great pleasure. So we have worked very hard over this year to try and educate people around not giving them bread. It is so important not to give these animals bread because it will kill them in the end. They need to give them grain or lettuce. And I took my grandson down to see them. He was absolutely delighted with them. And I'm afraid all we could feed them was spinach. That was all that was available in the store. But they enjoyed the spinach enormously. I've discovered they like it put in the water rather than on the grass. So some of these swans have been attacked. We've talked about it a lot within the Cabinet and with the ward councillors, particularly Councillor Dorrington, the Eastney Crazy councillors. Eastney and Crazy, that's almost as good as my sex mention the other day, successful. Anyway.
Move on, please, Councillor Hunt.
Yes, indeed. So we're bringing in CCTV to try and protect these swans even better than before. We will do what we can within the resources that we've got. But there have been a couple of gentlemen, I think, have been writing to us as councillors who live near there, and I want to reassure them that we are really as upset as they are. We are human beings, just like they are. And when magnificent animals like this get badly treated and killed, we are as upset as they or anybody else are. So we have, we're going to bring CCTV and try and do that. Also wanted to touch on the fantastic work of the RNLI. There's so much in this report we could talk about, Claire, but we rolled that about 3 or 4 different contracts up along the seafront from about 10 years ago into one pot of money and contracted the RNLI to do our safety. And it also is cross services, because one of the reasons we're building Bransbury Park is we want children to learn in a learner pool safely, because we have so many big seas around us with strong currents that kids need to learn to swim. So I am enormously proud of the fact that we will be building Bransbury Park and a children's learner pool to give them the opportunity to learn to swim. And so all of these things, they are all intertwined. Everything we do is intertwined. The children's learning pool, the swans, the CCTV, the sports we do along the seafront, right way through to the port where they send all their visitors down to see all these things. I'm just so enormously sad that in a couple of years we may not have the focus. This new council, if it comes into being, will not have the kind of focus that we sit in this room and with other councils do on the seafront. And I just hope if there are any representatives, they work hard to make sure that that investment continues, because we got it into a really good place. And that's without mentioning the sea defences, Councillor Mason, the tremendous work you did on that, the sea defences. Sorry to send you to sleep, but the tremendous work that you did with the sea defences, fantastic. We have a very good team. Yes, indeed.
Anyone else? Councillor Winnington.
Thank you, and thank you for the report, Claire. It's an excellent report, and I think a really key part of this report is about 2025 was a fantastic year on the seafront. It did have some challenges, but it's about learning from those challenges as well. And I think that's a really key part of the report that's come out here. We did some fantastic new things this year, which were very successful, like the Seafront Rangers, our seasonal team. And that has really helped us manage what is becoming an increasingly popular place for people to go. And I think we should be really proud of that. It does have challenges, especially when you have part of your seafront closed because of our sea defence work. And that will continue as we continue to have that done. And so I think a large part of this year, having the Clarence Parade area not available, really has helped us work forwards to when we're going to have the work being done around South Parade Pier as well, which of course is the next phase, which work has just started there. So that's something that I think is we cannot underestimate how important learning going forwards is when we're looking at that. The CCTV has been mentioned at Canoe Lake is critical. I'm really pleased as Ward Councillor, together with Councillor Dorrington and Councillor Canlish, that's going in there. And also, I think what's really positive about here is actually the engagement. So actually, when we talk to people and people explained about things that maybe things, including things like barbecues, might be better elsewhere, things like camping and whatever, just having those conversations with people, that's engagement is so important. Lots of places where things don't happen very well, when you go to other places, which, as Councillor Hunt says, we've invested in our seafront, other places you haven't, where you get a bit of a Wild West thing is where you don't get that engagement on your seafronts. And it's something that we're really working hard on. And indeed, if you look at 3.4, where you're talking about other considerations for 2026, including looking at potential for electrical barbecue units, but we have to look at planning on that, and other items around how we manage some of those areas, because we do understand that these areas are for everyone, but we want them to be for everyone, and we do want to try and make best use of all of our space right across the seafront as well. The sea defence is opening in a few weeks' time, fingers crossed, in the Full Clarence Parade will be fantastic, because that will open up that area of the beach again. And things going forwards, and I actually think, like with some other things, though we absolutely want to make sure that should LGR happen, as it looks like it will, but should it happen, that the things that we've done in Portsmouth can be exported to other places. So I think some of the ideas and things we've done in Portsmouth on our South Sea seafronts might be very, very helpful for somewhere like Hayling Islands, and might be very, very helpful for somewhere like Lee on the Solents. And because, to be quite honest, I think especially Lee is slightly underused, and Hayling might could probably get better as well. They have some fantastic events on Hayling in particular, but there are some real opportunities for us to share good practice, because if we have a focus on South Sea seafronts, that can be a focus for all those in the area. And should LGR, by some miracle, not happen, actually working with our partners on these kind of things, especially with what we talked about earlier with the devolution stuff and sort of that economic development side, that could be real opportunities there as well. So it's a really good report. There's loads of fantastic stuff going on. There's loads of brilliant events. There's more potential brilliant events coming in the future. Think about future, like things like the Water Sports Centre. But one thing we never do about our seafront is rest on our laurels. It's always about learning how we can make it better for people visiting the city, for people who live in the city, and for everyone as an environment that we can be really proud of.
Yeah, just to add, particularly on the Canoe Lake area, we will of course now be investing in a refresh of the Cumberland House Natural History Museum, and also in the much loved Rose Gardens, which will complement the investment, the significant investment being made by private individuals in the area around the Court X tennis courts with the new sculpture trail that's going to be coming online. So constant improvements. The CCTV will give us good oversight of what's going on in that area and the opportunity to monitor it and measure it. But I do understand that people get concerned when spaces get very, very busy, but they also do need to understand that not everybody else has their own garden. People don't have their own outside spaces. You know, if you live in a block of flats, you can't have a barbecue on the balcony. That's not safe. So people need to go to public spaces which they can share with others in order to be able to bond as a family and mix and associate with friends. And it's an important part of their cultural life. So this has always been for us about a balance, managing competing demands from those people who would like to just have a quiet wander around Canoe Lake and other people who see it as their back garden and an opportunity and a space for socialising and networking with other people. So it's always about balance, and we have to consider everyone's views and everyone's priorities, and not just those who maybe have very forthright opinions when we're making decisions. It's always about those seldom heard voices, as Councillor Atwell would correctly say, and making sure that we're doing our level best to represent all views and not just those of a smaller minority. But we have heard the issues that were being raised, and we have acted on them, and we will continue to do everything we can to manage the space as effectively as possible. Cabinet, having visited the new sea defences just this morning as a group, that will be opening up along Clarence Esplanade in, as Councillor Winnington said, a few weeks' time. They wouldn't give us a date, so we're not keeping anything quiet. They're keeping it very close to their chest. But in a few weeks' time, and that space will then be open for everyone to enjoy. And in particular, the area around the Naval War Memorial looks absolutely stunning. We'll look forward to seeing how people use that space as well. Anything else on this issue that members wanted to raise? No. In that case, Claire, thank you very much. The report's noted, and we'll hopefully have a successful summer, but maybe not quite as relentlessly busy and hot as last year, which was challenging for officers. Okay, moving on to item 9, that's the Hive update report, and we're joined by Catherine from Culture and Leisure, but also Lorna as Chief Executive of the Hive. Over to you two.
Thank you. As you see, we've got Lorna with us, who's the Chief Officer of the Hive, and she's going to give a summary of the report for you.
Thank you very much, Chair and members. I'm pleased to provide an update on the work of Hive Portsmouth as a key strategic partner supporting community wellbeing and our voluntary sector. Hive plays a central role in delivering the city's preventative and community-based ambitions. Through the Better Care Fund and our Memorandum of Understanding with Portsmouth City Council, Hive acts as the infrastructure backbone for Portsmouth's voluntary and community sector, and this becomes even more critical as we move towards potential local government reorganisation. Hive is already developing partnerships beyond the city's boundaries, strengthening system-wide collaboration and ensuring that community voice remains at the heart of integrated care. A major focus this year has been the integrated neighbourhood model. Hive has been fully involved in its development and has successfully opened new community help desks in Portsea and Paulsgrove. These are now embedded within the NNHIP programme and provide information, early intervention and practical support to local residents. And work is progressing on expanding the wider offer around the help desks, including a chronic pain group and seeding other community-led initiatives. Hive continues to deliver programmes that directly reduce pressure on statutory services, including the Wellbeing Collective, transforming mental health, digital inclusion, and the development of a new disabilities hub. Partnership in the Mental Health Transformation Programme has been particularly strong, bringing lived experience into service design and delivering a well-attended trauma-informed care conference that will now evolve into a citywide community of practice. Supporting the voluntary sector remains core to Hive's mission. In the first 9 months of this year, Hive has provided more than 500 support interactions for organisations, including 252 related to funding applications. The new joint Portsmouth City Council and Hive match funding scheme is already helping local organisations secure external funding and strengthen long-term resilience. Our alliances, including the Community Wellbeing Alliance and the Youth Alliance, are developing a stronger, coordinated sector voice and response. Volunteering continues to grow, with more than 3,400 volunteers active across the city. This includes over 800 hours contributed to the Ocean Race, alongside significant contributions in schools, care settings and community activities. The annual Inspiring Volunteer Awards once again showcase the commitment and generosity of residents. On direct resident support, the Central Library Help Desk has dealt with nearly 10,000 inquiries this year and the Directory of Services, now listing 876 organisations, has received over 100,000 views. Hive also continues to play a vital role in the cost of living response, food security planning, digital inclusion and support for disabled residents. We remain a core partner in the health determinants research collaboration alongside the university and the council, helping embed community research and insight into decision-making across the city. So in conclusion, Hive Portsmouth provides a critical infrastructure function for the city and helps ensure a resilient, coordinated VCSE sector. Our work supports our most vulnerable residents and plays a direct role in prevention, early intervention, community resilience, and tackling inequalities. This significantly reduces demand on statutory services, strengthens partnerships, and ensures residents can access support earlier and closer to home. Hive continues to deliver substantial impact, providing stability, connectivity, and community leadership at a time of significant system change. Thank you. Have any questions?
Thank you, Lorna. And I think you know how much I value the partnership that the council has with the Hive, and also the what we ourselves call the City Alliance Group that work with Shaping and Portsmouth Creates as well, where we get together regularly and share what we're working on and look for opportunities for greater collaboration, and that's incredibly valuable to me as well. So thank you for the report. I know it's a challenging time for the VCSE. We've seen decisions that the government's made around living wage and national insurance hit the sector by £1.4 billion. They could have done that and excluded charitable organisations from those impacts, or offered them some mitigation, and they didn't. And I think it's a great shame because the sector was already under a lot of stress at that point. And we're also seeing an environment where the funding landscape is getting ever tighter, and where core costs in particular, something that's really important for charities to have at least a contribution towards, are now being excluded from funding criteria, which means they expect people to go off and do loads of project work, but they don't want to pay the people who need to go and do the project work. It's completely mad. Organisations need proper governance. They need to be run properly by professional people who understand how to make their organisations deliver the very best for the people that they're there to serve. And they are professional setups in exactly the same way as any other business. It's just that the outcomes that they have are wholly about social impact. And to not show the level of respect to those businesses by giving them an exemption from those additional taxation costs has, in my view, caused significant damage. But I think what we can also say is that if we didn't have the Hive and we didn't have the relationships that we have in the city, the sector here would be in an even worse position. And we are at least in a position where we understand what the challenges are and that we can work collectively to try and overcome them, or at least minimise the impact of decisions made that are beyond our control. So thank you very much for the report on behalf of myself and the Cabinet, but also thank you to you and the whole of the Hive team for what they do, and also to those many VCSE organisations across the city who deliver so much impact for our communities. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, very quickly, it's good to see on page 8 as 6.5 down as a bit of quantifying the value of the voluntary work. It's something that I raised a couple of years back, and I think as we inevitably perhaps move towards local government reorganisation, the value which we know about without being told of Hive and the voluntary work is almost incalculable. And any new authority, if indeed it does happen, let's hope there's another U-turn, if any other new authority comes along, needs to understand the value of what goes on here. Without it, as you say, we would be a lot worse, or a lot of people would be a lot worse off.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Councillor Winnington.
Thanks, and thanks, Lorna, for coming along and for your report. As the co-chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, obviously we have a lot of contact with Lorna and the Hive, and the voluntary community social enterprise sector is absolutely critical to the work of the board. Within the health and social care sector and the rest of the sector we deal with, so that includes obviously community safety, the Children's Trust Board, etc., which are incorporated into our Health and Wellbeing Board. The VCSE is absolutely critical to the delivery of change for people in our areas, and then going to further things as well, to things like substance misuse services, etc. Again, they are absolutely critical to what we do, and you have to have a really good functioning local infrastructure organisation, which is what the Hive is for Portsmouth, to do this. And something about local infrastructure organisations, I work for one myself in Hampshire County, is when you're in a unitary authority, you have to do everything, because you have both the day-to-day work about volunteering and doing the day-to-day work about supporting local charities in your area and social enterprises and not-for-profit organisations in kind of their supporting them with governance. But you also have that strategic approach at that upper level. So we're talking about things like at the Health and Wellbeing Board, at things like what they're doing with the Health Determinants Research Collaboration, what you're doing with those things about having the disability centre in the city, about those help desks. All of that you have to do, because it's a bit like being a unitary authority. You have to go both ways. You have to both the strategic and the front line in many ways. And something that the Hive is relatively unusual in is that it is a bottom-up organisation. It is effectively run. It became as a collaboration of VCSE organisations, and it still exists in that way. Because for a time we didn't have an organisation at all, because our previous voluntary services organisation, I can't remember what it was called. Well, no, it's even before that, Councillor Peart. It was it ceased to exist, and so it was a case of having to recreate that, which was done in collaboration with the council to start with, and then it very quickly ran off on its own and did the work it does. So I'm really proud of the Hive, that they've been able to attract a lot of funding, to be able to do a lot of the work that they need to do, but also to take along with them the VCSE organisations, and put them into all of those important places in the city. So whether it's stuff to do with health, whether it's stuff to do with housing, whether it's stuff to do with substance misuse services, but whether it's stuff to do with things like business, take that lead as well, making those links about how you can better work together, because ultimately they work within the ecosystem of our local economy, which is, as Councillor Pitt said, why things like the government not having an exemption for charities is so devastating, because it really does make a difference. So, but you need to have a coordination body that we can call on and who can corral the VCSE in our area, and that's what the Hive does, and it's absolutely invaluable. I'm really thankful for the report, and looking forward to many, many years going forwards, whatever the future may bring, of the Hive working for the people of Portsmouth through the VCSE and making a real difference in all parts of our city.
Thank you, Matthew. Members, any other comments? Questions? No? Okay, in that case, just to reiterate, thanking you again, Lorna, for bringing the report, and to you and the Hive team for all that you do. I know that there are challenges, but that we'll continue to do all we can to work together to overcome them, because this piece of work is incredibly important. So thank you very much. Members, we are now on item 10, and it is the Clean Air Zone Update Report. Bethany, are you leading this?
I am, thank you. You have a double act this afternoon. So Bethan Clements, Transport Delivery Manager, and Hannah Sillence, Strategic Lead in my team. We're here to bring you the For Information report with an update on the Clean Air Zone. A very brief summary from me before I hand over to Hannah. The Clean Air Zone became operational in November 2021, and this was in response to a ministerial direction to improve NO2 levels below legal threshold limits within the quickest possible time. It's been a year since we last brought an update to Cabinet, roughly thereabouts, and that the report that I brought last year was to outline the results of our first central government assessment, known as State 1, which demonstrated that at the time, the CAS was not on track to achieve success, and that last year we pushed through a very rapid and detailed, complex piece of work to understand why that might be and what our options were. The report last year identified that, in agreement with central government, there were no further actions to be taken with the Clean Air Zone and that we would continue to monitor. At the beginning of this year, we received our second assessment, known as State 2, which indicates for the first time that the Clean Air Zone has dipped below legal threshold limits at all sites, with the caveat, only just. Okay, we're not completely out of the woods yet. So the report that's in front of you today is just detailing that and then outlining what we're looking at in terms of next steps. And I will hand over to Hannah, who can talk you through those.
So following the State 2 assessment, we've now had approval from the Joint Air Quality Unit to plan for the decommissioning of all measures associated with the NO2 programme. Our last remaining measure is the Clean Air Zone. So our next state assessment is State 3, which will take place around November this year. Alongside that, we will also undertake a State 4 assessment. So State 3 assessment, we have to prove that we have another year's worth of data to show that we're below the legal threshold. So that'll be 2 consecutive years. And State 4, we have to undertake modelling to show if we remove the Clean Air Zone that we would still remain compliant. So from now till November, we have to undertake modelling, which will incorporate traffic data through ANPR surveys. It will also undertake, consider any schemes that could potentially be built in the area that may affect the Clean Air Zone. We also need to submit an exit plan proposal of how we plan to exit the Clean Air Zone, and this will then be delivered as a final exit plan by November. If we're successful at State 3, we will then get confirmed that we are allowed to decommission the Clean Air Zone. We plan to decommission by 2027 if that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, Councillor Barrett, please.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I wanted to offer my thanks to various teams that have collaboratively worked together over quite a few years regarding this. Richard Lee and his team, Helen Atkinson and the public health team, and of course Hannah, Bethan and the rest of their team in transport as well. Clean air is a subject that is highly emotive, extremely important to everyone in this room. A few weeks ago, with support from Cabinet colleagues, I approved the Clean Air Strategy 26 to 2040. It's because we really do want everyone in Portsmouth to be able to breathe air that does not damage their health and their well-being, and that strategy set out the path to a greener, healthier Portsmouth. I was not on the council at the time, but I believe when the CAS was initially brought up, I do remember Councillor Vernon Jackson being leader of the council at the time, writing to the then Environmental Secretary Michael Gove, putting out a number of alternatives to the CAS, which I think were things such as free bus passes, having cash to be able to electrify taxis and private hire vehicles, and also a consideration, perhaps Councillor Sanders can mention this, because I'm not sure I'm correct, but a consideration towards the then housing target that was being implemented on the government. I believe that was ignored, and then, of course, now we have the CAS in place. We have, though, since then been working extremely hard to make changes needed to improve the air quality across the city as well as around the CAS area. I know that the work that Councillor Candlish has done recently to bring in significant funding, it's allowed us to work with the bus companies and make some great changes going forward that I know, quite frankly, talking to other councils, particularly in Hampshire, they're quite envious of. And the fact that we've been nationally recognised for that work is a great step forward. So, you know, I think that we can see in the report there has been a significant enough improvement to the point that in, I think it's 3.10 of the report, Jacu said in a letter to the council recently that Portsmouth has made that commendable progress going forward, which, you know, you always want to hear that we have taken those steps going forward. But that's because we've taken things really seriously as an administration and as a cabinet. We decided to make a change, and one point I did want to make is that we heavily invested in the nitrogen dioxide diffusion tubes across the city. Not many people perhaps will know, but before 2017, we had 27 diffusion sites across the city. By 2019, that figure had significantly increased to 144 sites. Now, you know, it depends on the situation, but 228 diffusion tubes across the city now, because we take it seriously and we want to do everything we can to improve air quality for our residents and those who visit the city as well. We have a lot of people coming in and we want to make sure it's a lovely place for them to visit and for all of our residents to live in. You can also see in 3.16 of the report, the table, as Bethan and Hannah have mentioned, we are above compliance we're above compliance in 3 areas and risking exceeding in 9 areas across the city. And then the following year and to this day, we are now in compliance across the city and have just those 3 areas, which we are aware of, and, you know, it continues to be the same 3 areas across in the city that, you know, that are at risk, and, you know, we will continue monitoring. So I do think we often hear negative news at the council and lots of people saying different things, but I think this is really good news. We have made positive steps forward. Air quality continues to improve. We always have more work to do, you know, but I do want to thank the various officers across the council for the work that it has taken to make this happen. But also, I'm really proud of my cabinet colleagues for taking these steps forward and supporting this work, because it is so important for our residents in the city. I will point out 3.23 which is the last paragraph of the report. It is extremely important. And it's something that I've said before in my cabinet decision meetings, and it's something that was very important that was put in the report. There is no safe level of air pollution. So, of course, we will continue to do whatever we can. We'll work with our partners. We've had the port here today, you know, working with Brittany they're doing their thing and how they can improve environment and carbon. So we are working with our partners going forward wherever we can, and it's why I signed the Clean Air Pledge on behalf of the council alongside a number of our partners as well recently, because it is not just important to us, it's important to our big employers and smaller employers across the city that they have their workers work in a healthy environment. So thank you, officers, for all the work you've done. Please pass on to the various teams. You know, we are really proud of where we're going. Still have more work to do, but I think, you know, it's something we should be really proud of, and we'll see how things go in November when we talk further about this. So thank you.
Councillor Barrett, Councillor Candlish, please.
Thank you, and thank you also to Councillor Barrett, who stole my opening line, which is that there is no safe level of pollution in the city. So I really am delighted to see that the NOx levels are falling, and this is a proxy for a wider improvement in the air quality that we've got. As the Cabinet Member for Transport, I'm absolutely clear that good transport, good easy transport around the city is essential for the success and livability of our city, but I also recognise that it is one of the key contributors to air pollution. So I'm really proud that we are putting in place a suite of measures which are providing more sustainable and better alternatives to the petrol and diesel vehicles that are contributors to that air pollution, and doing so in ways that people want to choose them. We're not forcing people, we're just providing better alternatives that people want to take up. So I often talk about the better buses. we've now got the number of fare-paying passengers, these are people paying with their own money to choose to take the buses, up 26% since before COVID. There's almost nowhere in the country that's got that kind of level of success. We've got better provision coming in for safe forms of cycling and scooting. We're helping people to walk around the city in easy and safe ways through better road crossings. And we're also doing other slightly different things like promoting car clubs and enabling people who continue to want or need to use a car to be able to use an electric vehicle, which is not going to put out the tailpipe emissions and pollution that can be a problem in the city. So over the last year, we put in over 300 new EV charge points, which is more than adequate for the current level of EVs in the city, which is about 5%, but is also a platform for the growth that we expect to see over the future years. And it's this looking forward, anticipating and trying to get ahead of things that's enabling us to get on top of the air pollution issue and start to drive it down. So, with the NOx levels falling and the data reported, as Councillor Barrett and the officers have said, showing that there is, not just in the CAS zone, but across the city, there are now no areas where we're exceeding the government's targets. We're not happy with that. We are still driving it down, but that is a way marker along the way that shows we are making progress in the right direction. I personally hope that we can take out the CAS zone in a couple of years as being unnecessary, because I think it's the other measures which are really going to enable us to keep on driving things down and in the right direction in respect of air pollution. So I thank the officers for the report. I thank them for all of the work that is going on in the background, in the EV team, on the bus teams, on all of the other transport teams, and the interactions they're having with other council officers that are enabling us to achieve this, because the results speak for themselves. It's like I wrote down here, a breath of fresh air when I was looking at this report. It's really nice to be having positive news to be able to give out to people about things that are working and where we have a solid, credible plan, not just hot air, but solid, credible plans with demonstrable rates of improvements to expect things to get continuously better out into the future.
My young nephew would have been very impressed with that pun, Peter. Councillor Hunt.
When the clean air zone was first mooted, I was ashamed that our city had poor quality air, and in places it still has. And I think that as an administration, we wore it like a hair shirt. And we wanted to, so the clean air zone was a symptom of a problem that we wanted to resolve in any event, and we're in the course of doing so, for all the reasons that Councillor Barrett mentioned earlier, the things that we were already getting on with, like the enormous amount of money that officers have been, and we asked them to do, to change buses around so that they are now electrically driven. The same with the amount of EV points that you're talking about. And boy, did we come in for stick for doing the shared scheme around scooters. But as a progressive administration, that is what we were elected to do. And I think that we have arrived at this situation, this is my personal view, not everyone will agree, that we arrived at this situation where things are improving in spite of this CAZ, rather than because of it. And I think that we probably, on the balance of probabilities, would have arrived at this situation in any event, because we are a green, progressive, liberal administration, and we are not satisfied to sit down and know that kids are breathing in fumes. So we wanted to change that, and that's what we've set about doing. And my hat's off to everybody who has helped do this. I'm very proud of the fact that it looks like the CAZ will go in due course, I'm sure the monitoring will continue by our officers, particularly Mr. Lee and traffic officers, regardless, and we will do everything possible. But we've created a chain of events, a chain of thinking around the EV points. Even though some people complain about them, I understand why, because you reduce parking spaces, but we have created a chain of events that will go on and move forward so that we reduce fumes and poisonous things in the air as much as we possibly can. And that's down, literally, thanks to a green and a progressive council. And I tell you what, if reform had been run in the council back then, none of this stuff would have happened, because they don't believe that it is happening. So we are a damn sight better choice than they would ever be on these issues, for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Yes, a bunch of climate change deniers running the council or the country is not something we particularly need, I don't think. Members, any other comments or questions on this one? No? Okay, in which case, thank you both very much. We're noting that, aren't we? Yeah. Okay, we're now moving on to item 11, which is the supporting, actually just before we do this, I'm noting that we've had a flurry of new arrivals in the last half hour from officers. Would you like to just say who you are so that we've added you to the record?
Yes, of course. It's Katie Ricks, Tackling Poverty Strategic Coordinator.
And James Hill, Director of Housing, Neighbourhood and Building Services.
Emma Randall, Head of Housing Supply.
Mike Wood, HRI Development Project Manager.
Nice to see you all. Okay, so we are doing the item on supporting residents, cost of living and crisis resilience fund 2026-27. And Katie, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on the support that the Council has been delivering to help residents manage the ongoing cost of living pressures, and outlines our plans for the new Crisis and Resilience Fund from April 2026. There's continued pressure on residents. Poverty is rising both nationally and locally, with deepening financial vulnerability in many households. Children remain the group at highest risk. In Portsmouth, nearly 1/4 of children live in relative poverty, and 35.5% of pupils are eligible for free school meals. Housing costs continue to drive hardship. Nationally, rents have increased 14% in the last 2 years, and in Portsmouth there's nearly a £264 monthly shortfall between the 2-bed LHA rate and the private rental cost. Portsmouth faces higher than average levels of deprivation. There's lower wages, a rising number of universal credit claims, high housing pressure and rising debt. The rising costs continue to impact on everyday essentials, including food, energy, water, clothing, furniture and appliances. In respect to food poverty, nearly 8,000 food bank vouchers were issued in Portsmouth in 24-25. And many households have little or no financial buffer, and support services in the city continue to experience high demand. We've been utilising the Household Support Fund to support our most vulnerable residents. For 25-26, Portsmouth received just under 3.33 million, and by the end of Q3, over 2.5 million had been spent, providing nearly 110,000 awards to vulnerable households. Support has included free school meals vouchers, energy and essential household support, exceptional hardship payments, and wider preventative support for our community partners. From April 2026, the Household Support Fund will be ending and is being replaced by the new Crisis and Resilience Fund. Portsmouth is receiving 3.7 million for year one. This is inclusive of the DHP allocation. When the DHP allocation is removed, this is a £125,000 reduction in funding compared to the Household Support Fund for this financial year. The new fund shifts from emergency-only provision to prevention and longer-term resilience, and does this also by integrating the discretionary housing payments on a phased basis. The new fund will have 4 strands: crisis payments, housing payments, resilience services, and community coordination. In preparing to plan for our delivery of the new Crisis and Resilience Fund, we engaged with residents who have received awards through the Household Support Fund and also professionals. We had an excellent response with 431 residents responding to the survey and 61 professionals. We learnt that residents prefer to apply online. They also prefer to receive support via cash first, as opposed to vouchers and goods in kind. Both the public and professionals strongly support linking crisis help with access to wider advice and support services. And key priorities identified were help with food, energy, essential household items, debt, benefit checks, and access to affordable food provision. Our proposed delivery plan for the Crisis and Resilience Fund includes a two-stage crisis payment process where we're able to give rapid 48-hour payments for households who are in emergency, which will be accessed through a referral route, and then also wider support for households needing support linking into appropriate resilience services. We're also going to provide targeted support using data to identify the most vulnerable households. We will be ending our free school meals voucher scheme in line with DWP guidance, and this focus will shift from awarding in a blanket way to more needs-led crisis support. We're also going to be investing in our resilience services, including expanding outreach of advice provision, looking at affordable food access, which provides wider wraparound support at point of access, financial education initiatives, and benefit update campaigns. We will also expand or continue to expand our Have Fun Pumpy programme to low-income households not in receipt of free school meals. There will also be grants to the voluntary and community sector to deliver resilience services and community coordination, for example via community hubs and co-located services, providing a no-wrong front door approach. We'll also continue to operate our well-used cost of living hub and helpline. The Leaders portfolio holds responsibility for the Tackling Poverty work, which includes delivery of the Crisis and Resilience Fund. The Tackling Poverty Partnership Group will guide and scrutinise delivery of CRF, bringing together the whole system response. A full delivery plan is due to be submitted to the DWP on the 1st of July, with management information returns every 6 months. Our communications will ensure that residents and members are fully informed about the new fund, along with our key partners. In Portsmouth, we will continue to provide critical support to residents facing financial hardship. The new Crisis and Resilience Fund provides an opportunity to build a more prevention-focused, joined-up system that strengthens households' long-term financial stability, whilst still providing rapid support in crisis situations. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Katie. Yes, I'm sure that the new focus will be effective. I just wish the new focus was going to be effective with the same amount of money or more that we had previously. This is what governments always do. They say we're going to roll together these two things and it will be broadly the same amount of money, and actually they cut a chunk out of it, and they do it with everything all the time, and it's incredibly annoying. But actually the bit about it that annoys me the most is the fact that when Angela Rayner, when she was Deputy Prime Minister before she got into trouble, met with all council leaders when she became the Secretary of State, she very much had a narrative about trusting local authorities, working in partnership, knowing that we knew our local areas best and wanting to make sure we were heard. Everything I've seen from this government since has been the antithesis of that. It's all, oh, we're going to give you more control, but you've got to spend it on these things. You've got to refocus on this. With no consultation with local authorities at all, just announced and done too. And by the way, you've got to do all of that with less money. And it's just depressing and boring, the amount of nonsense that ministers are literally spewing out in letters on an almost daily basis at the moment. I literally had one, I think it was yesterday, that said nothing. A letter that said nothing. It was a complete waste of time. Thank God it wasn't on paper with an envelope with a stamp with it, because otherwise it would have been offensive, whereas as it was just hugely disappointing. So I thank you very much for the work that you've done. I particularly thank you for the partnership work that you do, working with others to understand the needs of the sector. But I am massively frustrated by the fact that this is not something that Portsmouth can just design itself to meet the needs that we know are there, and that we have to do it with these handcuffs on from a government that just does too and doesn't listen. So we'll wait with interest to see how things move forward. I know all members here are particularly proud of the HAF programme and what it delivers, and that pretty much everybody has been to one of the sessions and dropped in to see just how effective they are. I know I have, and I will attempt to do so again this year. But just renaming something, cutting the amount of money that's attached to it and dictating to local authorities where they spend the money is not actually crisis support. It's just ticking a box. And I long for the day when councils are actually given the freedom to target this, where we truly believe it will be most effective, rather than somebody sat in Whitehall who I don't believe knows anything about much at all. Councillor Sanders.
And I think that's a very interesting theme, because one of the themes for this afternoon is how this council, under this administration, has tackled a whole raft of what could be really quite difficult issues in a creative and productive way that works and that delivers sustainable public services, whether it's pollution is going down. We have roads that are apparently not as lousy as everywhere else in the countries, rated green. We work constructively with the voluntary sector. We've delivered a devolution deal that's amongst the best in the country because of the way that we work, which is to put people first. And one of the reasons that we've been able to put the planet at much of the heart of the work that we do is because we want to put the people who aren't yet born first, because they're going to live through it and not us. And one of the reasons that we have problems with local government reorganisation is that that is all really at risk because of the deficits that we will be saddled with if we're not careful. And this paper outlines the backdrop against which we work, because it's not propitious. Portsmouth is most certainly not a rich area. It's got very rich bits in it, but there are plenty of places, including many of the estates that I oversee, that are really quite poor. But not poor in a uniform way, poor in a nuanced way. And I take, there's a paragraph in here which talks about number of people on universal credit. And it says there's 30,434 Portsmouth residents claiming universal credit, up 1/7 on the previous year. That's a lot of people. But of those, 10,206 are in jobs. I know 1/3 of council tenants are in jobs and on benefits. They're not scroungers. They just want a decent life. And if you don't believe that figure matters, that figure is bigger than the electorates of 6 of the 14 wards in this city. That's a lot. And that's a lot of people. And what we have to do is to try and make sure that their lives and the lives of other people who are living with real poverty, who are struggling to live on a daily basis, are improved in the same way that we tackle everything else, by putting people at their heart. And Steve, I think you undersold the point earlier, which is we have a Labour government that is cutting money to help poor people. I don't think that's what the Labour Representation Committee was set up in 1900 to do. I don't think that's what the Labour Party was set up in 1906 to do, was to cut money for poor people. But that is the consequence. And it gets better, because in the settlement that we've had, we find that in the 27-28 financial year, they're cutting the amount of money they're spending on homelessness and survivors of domestic abuse. They're cutting it by £100,000. This year, they're cutting public health money to help people get off drugs and to help our homeless. This is not a Labour government. This is not, I don't know what government it is. I don't think it knows, which is half the problem. But it's certainly not a government that is putting people at its heart, which is what we as an administration try to do. And this paper, where we don't have the handcuffs, actually outlines the practical ways in which we're doing it. And then we know that many people are really, really struggling. In the area I live and I represent, the PO3 postcode, that's one of the major issues people have. We shouldn't have pantries, we shouldn't have food banks in the 7th biggest economy in the world, but we do. And I know the one in my area has a hell of a lot of people who go through it, and that's why I'm delighted that this Liberal Democrat administration is continuing to fund pantries across the city as a result of the report in front of us. I'm delighted that we're focusing on trying to cut people's energy bills, so encouraging people to use social tariffs, not just with Southern Water, but elsewhere, because we want to help people. Now, one of the ways in which people will be helped is, in future, will be by implementing a Liberal Democrat policy, which is to remove the 2-child benefit cap, a policy on which Liberal Democrats have been consistent because we know that is the quickest way of getting the people in this city and elsewhere out of poverty. We know the Tories have always been opposed to it. That's fine. We don't like that. We also know that Labour and Reform have done the political equivalent of the okey cokey on it. It's in or it's out, or it's in or it's out, depending on which day of the week it is. But we've been consistent in our belief that this is the quickest way to get people out of poverty, and we believe it will. So hopefully these figures will be better. But as you've said, Steve, if we have the handcuffs on, we can't put people first in this city. When the handcuffs are off, we tend to do it quite well. As Lee has pointed out earlier, local government reorganisation, the belief that somehow you can improve people's neighbourhoods by making councils bigger, unless you're the Isle of Wight, is clearly putting that at risk through money, through saddling us with deficits that we can barely afford. But in the meantime, while we haven't got those handcuffs on, we're able to help people, including the least of these brothers of mine. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Darren. Members, just to understand you've got to leave, Councillor Dorrington. If you look on page 3 of the actual report, page 177 in the pack, the section starting 3.2, when Katie was putting the report together, she actually said to me, do you want me to pull all that out into an appendix? Because it's background context, and it's not necessarily some of its national figures is what I'm trying to say. And I said, no, don't. No, leave it in there. And there was a reason for that in its context. It's always important to understand how we sit nationally, but also what are the pressures happening around us rather than just to us. And several people have commented already, there are some really stark figures in all of that. And then in the next section goes on to deal with what we'll actually be doing with that money, giving you a reference point to look back on. And I think, given the challenges and given the fact that the money's not increasing, it's actually going down, we are reaching a lot of people with some kind of support. But I also agree that it is absolutely disgusting that we live in one of the largest economies on the planet, and that we've still got people accessing food banks and people who are choosing between heating and eating. And I actually don't care whether it's a Labour government or a Conservative government or it's a coalition government or it's an Uncle Tom Cobley and all government. It's a disgrace, it's embarrassing and it's pathetic. And the fact that they can sit there and announce billions for this, that and the other, but they can't fix the basics so that people can go to work and earn enough money through, even if it's a low-paid job, that it pays enough money to pay their rent and bills, then there's something fundamentally wrong with this country as a country, and it needs to be sorted out. And the yarboo of the green benches of the House of Commons are an irrelevance to that. If people are elected, they're all elected for exactly the same reason, which is to ensure the best auspices for the people that they represent, not to argue and fight with each other about it on a daily basis. Maybe one day people will come together and actually tackle some of the big national issues, particularly the one that I know Matthew is very passionate about, and that is the relationship between health and social care. But actually, the root cause of a lot of this is because there's not a proper relationship between health and social care in this country. And it's an abomination that we have to sit here talking about the slim pickings tossed down at us by government to fix problems that they've created, not us. We haven't caused this. Local government hasn't done this. The officers who work for the council haven't done this. The local VCSE hasn't done it. The residents certainly haven't done it to themselves. The government did it. And then they chuck you scraps and say, we've broken it. It's up to you to deal with the consequences and try and fix it. And it's embarrassing and it's sad and it shouldn't be happening. So Keir Starmer, get your head out your backside and start fixing some of these problems, because you're a Labour Prime Minister and that's what you were elected to do, not run around kissing Donald Trump's backside. Sorry, get on high horse, but I feel very strongly about it, and that embarrassing occasions when he was called forward, and as soon as he did, he turned his back on him and he shuffled back into the little corner where he'd come from, summed it up as far as I was concerned. Have we got anything else on this particular paper to talk about today, or can I stop ranting? Councillor Atwell.
Really follow in style and presentation. I could never do that, but just to, I mean, it's sort of worse, really.
Well, I think your presentation would. Styles might be quite different.
Well, in style and presentation, I just feel I could never follow you when you're doing that. Household support fund and the discretionary housing payments, it's more than £124,000, because when you consider inflationary pressures, actually it's significantly more. So, you know, it's worse than it perhaps even appears in the report, which is pretty bad. Also, Katie, I know you'll make every pound stretch as far as it can go. And it's extraordinary that, as you said, the work that Katie and partners do. I'm really, really pleased, and thank you for including the structural inequalities element of this, because here we're proportionately impacted by structural inequalities. And that's the real trick, is to break those. But as you say, we can't do it with, you know, the £2.50 that we get here. So we need somebody at some point to really attack the inequalities that we face here in Portsmouth. But thank you very much, Katie and team.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? No, in which case we are very happy with that report. I can't remember if there were any actual... it's just an update, isn't it? Yes, we're not approving anything at this point. So, Katie, thank you very much indeed, and look forward to an update in due course as to how everything's going. Please don't feel you need to stick around this afternoon. Over to James and the rest of the team now for the Summers Orchard project update. I'm minded by time, so we'd better keep things fairly succinct.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say a few words. Firstly, I'm delighted to bring this report to you, which sets out the plan to deliver phase 1 of the Summers Orchard scheme. And I'd like to place on record my thanks to officers, some of whom are here today, that have been part of the programme and project board. It's truly been a cross-council effort, all of whom have worked hard to explore all the options available to bring this development forward. I had the pleasure of joining the community panel on the 23rd of February, along with our design partner KCA officers and ward members, to announce the news that we could bring forward Block C. The panel were absolutely delighted with the news and enthusiastic at the part that they will play and the local community in working with us to deliver the new housing. The community panel, as you know, have worked with us throughout this project right from the get-go and have continue to be at the heart of this project. We've enjoyed very strong support from ward members, and also you, Leader, and the Cabinet Member for Housing and Tackling Homelessness have provided clear political oversight and never let up in your direction for the programme and project board to lift every stone to achieve viability. I'll hand over to Emma just to briefly introduce the report.
Thank you. As James outlined, we are bringing an information-only update report. So you'll note in section 2 that we've provided detail that we are working within the existing approvals and delegations that were granted in the Cabinet's decision from March 2022. In section 3, we set out the background to the scheme, and the Cabinet members will remember that this development sits on the sites of the former Horatio and Leamington House sites in Somerstown. The deconstruction provided the opportunity to really regenerate the site and develop a scheme with the community at the heart that prioritises housing delivery and focuses on social and affordable homes. So the overall master plan provides for 566 homes across 4 different phases. There's new public realm and enhancements to uplift the area. But Section 4 sort of sets out that the local planning authority approved the master plan under 2 consents in August 2024, and the legal agreements were completed in December last year, which enabled the decision notices to be issued and the development brought forward. This in turn has triggered the 3-year implementation for a start on site condition. Section 5 sets out what we mean by delivery of Phase 1. So Phase 1 includes the Block C formation, which is 3 buildings of varying heights between 4 and 18 stories. It's 175 social rented homes, roughly a third of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom homes, with a proportion of those being fully accessible and a further proportion being sheltered. The homes will be owned and managed by Portsmouth Homes via the housing revenue account and allocated to those on its housing list, using a special lettings policy to ensure a balanced community is achieved, and that will include residents that previously lived in the deconstructed blocks who wish to express and register an interest to move back to the scheme. Furthermore, there'll be 2 sort of ground floor commercial units available to commercially rent, a publicly accessible changing spaces, toilets and public realm to serve the units, and enabling infrastructure that supports the further delivery of future phases. Section 6 outlines our continued commitment to ensuring that the remaining phases are brought forward as well, as quickly and efficiently as possible, and we will continue to explore alternative delivery models for those and work with partner agencies such as the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government and Homes England. And it's really important to emphasise that these partnerships are critical with the grant funding that they provide. And that's really helped us to reach a point of viability. The community panel remains at the heart of the project, and Section 7 sets out our continued commitment to this approach, and we wish to place thanks on record, as James has, to the community panel for their continued support and engagement. Section 8 provides detail on the meanwhile uses that have been supported on site, including the community garden, and it's intended that the garden continues during the next phase, and we'll work hard with the community to reinvigorate those spaces. Section 10 outlines the approach to the preliminary market engagement completed last year with Tier 1 and Tier 2 contractors. The purpose of that exercise was to test the market appetite to deliver the Phase 1, understand the preferred procurement routes to bring it forward, validate our assumptions on construction cost, and identify opportunities for value engineering, the outcomes of which have been a really key part of achieving viability and giving us confidence for moving forward to this next phase. This next phase is going to be focused around the detailed construction plans that are being prepared, that contractors will be invited to bid to build, and the procurement for which will be undertaken in accordance with a council's procurement regulations and within the established project governance arrangements. Those governance structures are set out in Section 11 and does note that the project is listed as a major project and reports to the Corporate Projects Board, which is chaired by the Chief Executive. Lastly, before I pass to finance colleagues to outline, I'll just draw attention to legal comments and considerations in Section 12, where we'll be reviewing what additional legal resource might need to be procured. I'll just pass to James to comment on finance.
Thanks, Emma. I think you probably covered a lot of it in your intro, but it has been challenging to get it to a viable position. And as James said earlier on, that it's been a real team effort. I think one of the big things that we did in terms of financial viability was we'd done a lot of desk-based work, but when we did the preliminary market engagement with the contractors, that gave us more certainty around a lot of the value engineering. Section 9 talks about all the different things that we did, and it's all backed up by a big model that we're able to test a lot of sensitivities on. But I think that partnership working with Homes England as well to maximise the grants has meant that, you know, we've got to a point, certainly on this first phase of the overall project, where we've got to a position of viability, which is just really good news to be out at this point.
Thank you, James, and indeed it is. The significance of 175 units is not to be underestimated. It will be a large social housing project, and it is the first phase. I think the expression that I've been pushing a narrative of over the last year or so in particular is cranes in the sky. And once you get cranes, you start building stuff, people notice that you're building stuff, they get interested in the fact you're building stuff, and often they come and want to help you build stuff, but you've got to get on with it in the first place. And the problem with this project for a long time was its viability, because post-Grenfell, for completely understandable reasons, building control was significantly changed, second staircases needing to be added, etc. But fundamentally, there was an enormous rise in the cost of raw materials and for undertaking building projects and steel and bricks and plaster and goodness knows what else, coming out of the pandemic where those costs went through the roof very, very quickly. We've also seen it with the Bransbury project. Obviously, people say, oh, it's gone up a lot in price. Well, yes, try building a house now to what it was like a few years ago. It's gone up a lot in price. That is a national thing and an international thing. It's not a Portsmouth thing. And that has made this challenging. But the thing that's been the case throughout is the determination to keep moving the project forward and find that critical moment in time where it could be green lighted, and I'm very happy that we are now in that place, and I am pretty sure that once we actually get cracking with this, then the other blocks are going to follow fairly promptly behind. But looping us back to where we were with combined authorities discussions much earlier on in the day, you've got to remember that with local enterprise partnerships ending, who used to get funds from government to support infrastructure and building, with those disappearing, that left a vacuum, and there was no locally based organisation where the council could apply to in order to get that extra funding to close that financial gap. And just relying on Homes England, who hadn't had their funding from the government increased, meant that that couldn't happen. So all this nonsense that's been going on about changing planning rules and to get building and unlocking the 1.5 million homes, ask any developer in this country, whether a social landlord or a commercial landlord, if that is the issue, and they will say no, it is not. It is nothing to do with that. It's about the cost of materials going up and the amount of grant funding not being enough to close the gap, but also the fact that rents were pegged. So with borrowing costs increasing, you couldn't borrow enough money against future rents from tenants in order to build them new places to live. None of this is rocket science, it's all very straightforward, but apparently it's far too much for governments to get their heads around and start to fix. So the reason that we are in this position is because we have taken money that is meant for regeneration and we have targeted it into this scheme to get it unlocked. Let's be clear, without that, we still wouldn't be viable. So we're okay, we can get going with this now, but there are still thousands of housing projects across this country stuck because government's deaf as to the reasons why they are. So we really look forward to bringing this forward and seeing these social homes unlocked, and then hopefully through the combined authority releasing further funding to improve the viability on the remaining blocks and seek partners to bring them forward. This project matters. Homes matter. Decent places for people to live matter. You want to start addressing intergenerational poverty and improving aspirations. Decent places to live matter. It's the fundamental to everyone to have a successful life. And we are going to be prioritising 175 families' new lives over the next couple of years, and that's something that's really important. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Leader. Looping back to the devolution argument as you did earlier, you're looking at one of the main reasons why that is a very exciting project, because with this strategic partnership that will start from May 1 between the new combined authority and Homes England, that will unlock the money to deliver the remaining 350 homes that this council agreed to in 2024. I know that this project is very near, if not at the top of the list of projects that will be presented by the new combined authority on May 1. Because it can be done, because we've got the money, we've got the ability, we've got the people, all we need is the money. And I'm delighted, as you said, that we were able to start that, because that will increase the chances of that happening. But I'm more delighted for the people whose dream this is. This isn't a bunch of politicians telling people what to do. This isn't a bunch of council officers telling people what to do, although both of us at various times have desperately wanted to. But we wanted to do something different. We wanted to put people at the heart of everything, just as this administration puts people at the heart of everything that it does. So what you see before you isn't my dream, it's not your dream, leader, it's none of the officers' dreams. It's the dreams of local people who, like the people in our previous report, have been let down for too long, not least by schemes that were devised by people who would never live there and didn't work, even if they tried. And that failure means people don't feel in control of their lives. They don't feel that they can lead a better life. And by giving people a decent home, that then gives them the start that they need. I am personally delighted that this project is happening. I really, really do believe that this is the start, and I believe the devolution report that we agreed earlier on this afternoon will enable us to finish the job that we have started. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Hunt, please.
I'll be quick. What I want to say is we've got cranes up already up at Tipner, where we're building 800 homes. And let's not forget, over in your neck of the woods, over at St James's Hospital, we're building more homes. This is on top of the 175 that came at the former Kingston Crescent, on top of homes at the old Odeon Cinema. So houses are being built in this city. Let's just not forget that, despite what the MP for Portsmouth North wants to say, we are getting on with building houses. People should recognise how well Portsmouth is doing on this. We're ahead of the game, we're ahead of the curve. I think only Liberal Democrat Run Eastleigh beats us on this matter. They don't beat us on much, but on this matter, perhaps they got a bit ahead. So houses are being built. And it's really important for all the reasons that Councillor Sanders describes. Not enough houses have been built since, they're all agreeing with me, not enough houses have been built since the war. And this is a failure of successive governments. This is why we see, despite what everybody says, the issue around houses of multiple occupancy. People have got to live somewhere. People are paying eye-watering rents, you know. How much is it? You know, $1,500 for renting a three-bedroom house nowadays, and then there's nursery fees on top of that, which is like $1,500. So young couples are having to find £3,000 before they even start to think about driving to work or whatever. It is so hard, and I think this is what you said earlier. These governments come in. We thought Labour would fix some of these things, but they haven't. They have let everybody down, and they should be ashamed of themselves, quite honestly. So house building is being got on with. This is another part of it here, and well done, Portsmouth.
Thank you, Lee. Chris?
Again, I find myself in the unenviable position of following somebody like Lee. Okay, Summers Orchard is about people. The rest is bricks and mortar, for me anyway. And so massive thank you to the people of Somerstown, who, specifically the community panel, of course, who have been, are, and will continue to be invaluable to the process, but actually to the wider population of Somerstown, who have been totally engaged, I think it's fair to say, in the process, and have come out in their hundreds, if not thousands, to community events, to give feedback, to complete surveys, and just kind of the spirit within which people have approached this. It's a real privilege to represent Somerstown. It doesn't always, I think, get the best kind of press, but actually, here's a human story, because it's about people. We had an event, Summersfest, 2 summers ago, and we had people come along and set up stalls and activities for people. Outside this couple's flat, Motivate set up, and they had that. It wasn't a very quiet setup, but they had activities for young people and throughout the day. And this couple had been cooking their family meal, their curry, which tasted and smelled amazing, and came out and shared it with you know, motivate people that were outside and the other people that are accessing the services. And, you know, I think that just is a reflection of the community in Somerstown, who are often out there wanting to give back and to get involved. And absolutely, this area deserves the investment that it's going to get with 175 new homes. So thank you. Thank you for the report.
I think one of the themes that we've had today is that often it's the stuff that just goes on, that just happens, that doesn't grab headlines, that doesn't cause media storms on social media and doesn't get people all animated and bunging out attack leaflets, that actually matters the most. And a lot of what this council does is it quietly gets on with its business and supports communities. And it does it really effectively, and it does it in a very collaborative way. And we don't go trumpeting it and shouting about it and dropping banners off the front of the civic offices to say how amazing we are. Perhaps we should, because this is a project designed with the residents, for the residents. The Castle Road scheme that's getting close to completion was co-design with those residents and those businesses in that area. When we built the KG5 football hub in Cosham, we did extensive consultation with all of the local football clubs so that we knew what facility they wanted to see and what facilities it would actually have to service that need. We've done it time and time again. When we want to change whether people are going to leave bins on the street or not. I was in a meeting very recently where an officer in that meeting was arguing very vociferously for just removing all the bins that are still on streets. And I said, no, we don't do that. We go out and we do education and we work with people and we bring them along with us. And I believe that is why this city continues to return a Liberal Democrat administration, because it likes the way we do things. So thank you very much indeed, officers, for the way that you've been so tenacious in bringing this project forward. And we really look forward to seeing those cranes in the sky delivering new homes in Somerstown, the homes that the people of Somerstown wanted to see. Okay, members, anything else? Okay. Lee, you're going to miss Treasury Management. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to Treasury Management. Last item, Richard, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet endorsement of the proposed annual Treasury Management Policy for 26-27. This has already been to Governance, Audit and Standards Committee. If approved today, will then require full Council approval. This policy provides the operational framework for two key Treasury activities. Firstly, it considers the borrowing position of the Council and takes a forward look at the Council's borrowing needs, which is linked to the Council's capital expenditure plans and cash flow requirements. And secondly, it defines the operational parameters for the investment of surplus cash. This is called the Annual Investment Strategy and sets out the Council's approach to managing risks. There are no significant changes in either the operational framework or the approach to risk compared to last year's policy, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Mason.
How did you guess? I think it's important to see this in the context of the financial environment in which we find ourselves. And there are two things which we need to remember. First is that a lot of councils, including some around here, are selling the family silver or are going cap in hand to the government for a Section 114 bailout. We are not. And the second thing to remember is that we live in a very, very risky environment, and considerably more risky than it was 5 days ago. What is happening in the Middle East will, in fact, increase risk because we invest internationally and we borrow from the market. So we are living in a risky environment. What we see before us, I think, is a very careful, well thought out Treasury management policy. It is very prudent, as you will see if you look at section 4.2.4 in the report, where we invest money, where we borrow money. It's prudent, but it is also innovative and imaginative. So we are faced with a high-risk situation, but we have been managing it well. And the fact is that we are a solvent city. And I wonder how many other councils could stand up and say that. And what you will see in 3.5 of the recommendations is that we should approve the type of approach both to borrowing and to investing which has served us very well and should serve us very well in this very uncertain environment in which we find ourselves.
Thank you, Hugh. Members, any other comments? Okay, happy with the report? Okay, thank you, Richard. And that concludes today's meeting. Thank you all for your time and patience.